Emily Carter's fingers trembled as she stared at the eviction notice on her kitchen table. Outside, rain hammered against the windows of her tiny Boston apartment like fists demanding entry. It was 2 a.m, and she had 72 hours to come up with 3 months' rent, or she and her 7-year-old son would be sleeping in her car. She grabbed her phone with shaking hands, scrolling desperately through her contacts until she found the name Mark. He owed her. He'd promised. Her thumbs flew across the screen as thunder cracked overhead. "Mark, I need $300 by morning or I'm out on the street. Please don't ignore me again." She hit send and dropped the phone on the table, burying her face in her hands. In the next room, Leo slept peacefully, completely unaware that their entire world was collapsing. Emily's chest tightened. She'd failed him. She'd worked double shifts at the diner until her feet bled, but it still wasn't enough. Nothing was ever enough. Her phone buzzed and she snatched it up, hope flooding through her veins. "Who is this?" Emily's heart sank. The words were cold, clinical. This didn't sound like Mark at all. But desperation made people do crazy things, and she was past the point of pride. She typed back quickly, her vision blurring with tears. "Emily. Please, I just need to borrow something for my son." The seconds stretched into minutes. The rain continued its relentless assault. Then her phone lit up again with 2 words that made her blood run cold. Address. Something in her gut screamed that this was wrong, that Mark would have called her, that Mark wouldn't ask for her address when he'd been to her apartment a dozen times. But the eviction notice stared at her from the table, and Leo's tiny sneakers sat by the door, and she was so tired of fighting alone. She sent her address and told herself everything would be fine. She told herself a lot of lies that night. Dawn came too quickly. Emily had fallen asleep at the kitchen table, her cheek pressed against the pile of unpaid bills. The pounding on her door jolted her awake, and for one confused moment she thought it was still thunder. But thunder didn't sound that deliberate, that commanding. She stumbled to the door, still wearing yesterday's waitress uniform, and pulled it open without checking the peephole. The man standing on her porch made her forget how to breathe. He was tall, wrapped in a black coat that probably cost more than her car, with eyes the color of a winter sky before a storm. 2 men flanked him like shadows, their hands resting inside their jackets in a way that suggested weapons. This wasn't Mark. This was something far more dangerous. "You texted me last night," the man said. His voice was smooth, controlled, the kind of voice that never had to rise to be obeyed. Emily's mouth went dry. "You're not Mark, are you?" "No." He stepped forward and she instinctively moved back. He walked into her apartment uninvited, his eyes scanning everything with the precision of someone who assessed threats for a living. "I'm Adrian Moretti." The name meant nothing to her, but the way he said it suggested it should. His gaze lingered on the peeling wallpaper, the broken heater leaking rust onto the floor, the photograph on the refrigerator held up by a crayon-drawn heart. He moved toward the photo like a predator studying prey. "Who's your son?" he asked. "None of your business." Emily crossed her arms, trying to look braver than she felt. "Look, I made a mistake. Wrong number. You can leave now." Adrian turned to face her, and something in his expression made her skin prickle. "Everything becomes my business when someone uses my private number. That number isn't listed anywhere. It's not in any directory. The only people who have it are people connected to me through very specific channels." He stepped closer. "So tell me, Emily Carter, how did you get it?" "I didn't," she whispered. "It was a mistake. I was trying to text my friend Mark." He studied her for a long moment, his eyes moving across her face like he was reading a book written in her exhaustion and desperation. Then he looked back at the photo on the fridge. A younger Emily stood next to a broad-shouldered man with kind eyes and a construction vest. Leo balanced on the man's shoulders, all 3 of them laughing at something beyond the frame. "Your husband?" "No." The word came out harder than she intended. "He's dead." "How?" "Construction accident." Emily swallowed the lump forming in her throat. "They said the scaffolding collapsed. They said he didn't suffer." Something flickered across Adrian's face, there and gone so quickly she almost missed it. He reached into his coat and pulled out a thin manila folder. Emily's heart rate spiked. Who carried folders in their coat? What kind of person showed up at dawn with documentation? Adrian opened it and held up a photograph, and Emily's world tilted sideways. It was Daniel. Her Daniel. But he wasn't wearing his construction gear. He stood beside a sleek black car, talking to a man in an expensive suit, and the body language suggested this wasn't their first meeting. The background showed a warehouse she didn't recognize, and the timestamp put it 2 weeks before Daniel died. That wasn't an accident, Adrian said quietly. Emily grabbed the photograph, her hands shaking so badly the image blurred. What is this? Where did you get this? Your husband was Daniel Carter. Truck driver, part-time construction worker, devoted father. Clean record, paid his taxes, never missed a child support payment after you separated. Adrian's voice remained steady, but there was something almost gentle in it now. He also unknowingly transported illegal goods for a company that was a front for one of my rivals. Someone set him up, Emily. Someone wanted me blamed for stealing a shipment, and they used your husband as the fall guy. No. Emily shook her head, backing away until she hit the wall. No, Daniel wouldn't. He wouldn't get involved in anything illegal. He didn't know. Adrian moved closer but stopped just outside her personal space, giving her room to breathe. The company he worked for, Eastern Logistics, was legitimate on paper. But certain shipments, certain routes were anything but. Daniel was driving one of those routes the night he died. The scaffolding didn't collapse. Someone cut the safety lines and made it look like negligence. The room spun. Emily slid down the wall until she was sitting on the floor, the photograph clutched in her hands. All those nights she'd blamed Daniel for taking extra shifts, for being reckless, for leaving her alone with a 6-year-old and a mountain of debt. All those times she'd been angry at a dead man for dying. And he'd been murdered. I know the man who killed him, Adrian continued. And he's still walking free. Emily looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. Why are you telling me this? Because you texted me by mistake, and that mistake just connected you to something very dangerous. If I found this connection, others will too. Your husband's death might have been written off as an accident, but his widow suddenly contacting a known crime boss. Adrian crouched down to her level. That raises questions. Questions that get people killed. Mommy. Both of them froze. Leo stood in the hallway, rubbing his eyes, his dinosaur pajamas rumpled from sleep. He looked at Adrian with more curiosity than fear, the way children do before the world teaches them to be afraid. Who's that? Leo asked. Emily wiped her eyes quickly, forcing a smile. Just a friend, baby. Go back to bed. But I'm hungry. Adrian stood smoothly, buttoning his coat. I'll send someone with groceries. And security. He looked at Emily with an intensity that made her feel exposed. You have 24 hours to decide. Let me protect you and your son while we handle this, or take your chances on your own. But understand this, Emily. The people who killed your husband don't leave loose ends, and you just became one. He walked to the door, his men falling into formation behind him. At the threshold he paused. My number is in your phone now. Really in your phone. When you're ready to accept reality, use it. Then he was gone, leaving Emily sitting on her kitchen floor with a photograph of her dead husband and a truth she wasn't ready to face. Leo padded over and climbed into her lap, and she held him so tightly he squirmed. Mommy, you're squishing me. Sorry, baby. She kissed the top of his head, breathing in the scent of his strawberry shampoo. I love you so much. You know that, right? I know. Can we have pancakes? Emily laughed, the sound catching in her throat like broken glass. Yeah. We can have pancakes. She made breakfast on autopilot, her mind racing. Adrian Moretti. She'd been so desperate, so exhausted, that she hadn't even questioned the weird response to her text. She'd sent her address to a stranger, and that stranger turned out to be connected to her husband's death. The coincidence was too perfect, too calculated. Unless it wasn't a coincidence at all. That afternoon, Emily picked Leo up from school like she did every day. She held his hand as they walked to her beat-up Honda, listening to him chatter about the frog they'd learned about in science class. She was unlocking the car door when she noticed it. A black sedan, windows tinted, parked 3 spaces down. The same black sedan that had been parked outside her apartment that morning. The same black sedan she'd seen on the corner when she left for the school. Her blood turned to ice. Get in the car, Leo. Now. But Mom, now. She practically threw him into the back seat, her hands shaking as she jammed the key into the ignition. The black sedan's engine started. Emily pulled out of the parking spot too fast, tires squealing, and the sedan followed, left. The sedan stayed 3 cars back, patient and persistent. "Mommy, you're driving scary," Leo said from the back seat, his voice small. "It's okay, baby. We're okay." But they weren't okay. They were being followed, and Emily had no idea what to do. She couldn't go home. She couldn't go to the police. What would she even say? She drove in circles, her panic building with each turn, until finally she pulled into a grocery store parking lot and grabbed her phone with shaking hands. Adrian answered on the first ring. "You were right," Emily said, her voice cracking. "Someone's following me." "Then you just made your choice." His tone shifted from casual to commanding in an instant. "Where are you?" She told him. "Stay in the car. Lock the doors. Don't open them for anyone but me." "How will I know it's you?" "You'll know." The line went dead. Emily locked the doors and pulled Leo into the front seat, wrapping her arms around him. Through the windshield she could see the black sedan parked at the far end of the lot, waiting. 5 minutes passed. 10. Then 3 black SUVs pulled into the parking lot in perfect formation, boxing in the sedan. Men in dark suits emerged, and Emily couldn't see what happened next, but the sedan's occupants got out with their hands raised. One SUV pulled up next to her Honda. The back door opened and Adrian stepped out. Emily unlocked her door with trembling fingers. "Get Leo. Leave the car. My people will bring your things." "Where are we going?" "Somewhere safe." He glanced at the men surrounding the sedan. "Somewhere they can't follow." Emily didn't argue. She grabbed Leo and climbed into the SUV, and Adrian slid in beside them. As they pulled away, Leo stared at him with wide eyes. "Are you a superhero?" Leo asked. Adrian's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "No. I'm not a hero at all." "Then what are you?" "Someone who keeps his promises." He looked at Emily, and she saw something in his eyes that she hadn't expected. Regret, maybe. Or recognition. "I promised to protect you. So that's what I'm going to do." The safe house was nothing like Emily expected. She'd imagined some dingy warehouse or concrete bunker, but instead they drove through gates into a wooded property with a modern glass house tucked among the trees. It looked like something from an architecture magazine, all clean lines and floor-to-ceiling windows, completely at odds with the violence that had brought them there. "You can stay as long as you need," Adrian said, leading them inside. The interior was minimalist but comfortable, with a fully stocked kitchen and bedrooms that looked like they belonged in a luxury hotel. "My men will patrol the grounds. You won't see them unless there's a problem." Leo immediately found the living room and the massive television, his eyes lighting up. "Whoa. Can I watch cartoons?" "Leo manners," Emily started, but Adrian waved her off. "Watch whatever you want." He pressed a button and the TV came to life, already set to a kids' channel. How did a crime boss have a kids' channel programmed? Emily didn't want to think about what that implied. Over the next few days they settled into a strange routine. Adrian visited twice a day, bringing groceries and clothes that fit perfectly even though Emily never gave him their sizes. He kept his distance, working on his laptop at the kitchen table while Leo played and Emily tried not to fall apart. But Leo, with the resilience of children everywhere, treated the whole thing like an adventure. He drew pictures and insisted on showing them to Mr. A, and to Emily's shock, Adrian let the boy climb into his lap while he worked. "You're good with him," Emily said one evening, watching Adrian help Leo with a puzzle. "Kids are honest." Adrian fitted a piece into place, guiding Leo's hand. "They don't lie about who you are. They just see what you show them." "And what are you showing him?" "Someone who keeps his word." He looked up at her, and in the fading light his eyes looked less cold, more human. "Your husband died because someone broke their word. Because someone valued money over a man's life. I don't operate that way." "You're still a criminal." "Yes." He didn't flinch from the word. "But monsters have rules, Emily. And mine include protecting people who end up in my world through no fault of their own." That night, after Leo was asleep, Emily couldn't rest. She wandered through the house, her mind churning with everything that had happened. She passed by Adrian's study and heard voices, low and urgent. She knew she shouldn't listen. She knew it was none of her business. But Daniel's face kept flashing in her mind and she pressed her ear to the door. "Boss, we found the truck driver's name on the shipment logs." The voice was unfamiliar, rough with exhaustion. Someone used his credentials to frame him. Made it look like he was stealing from you. The name came from inside your own office. Emily's heart stopped. Who? Adrian's voice was deadly quiet. Marcus Flynn. Marcus Flynn. The name circled in Emily's head like a vulture. She knew that name. She knew it from somewhere. She stumbled back from the door, her breath coming too fast, and rushed to the bedroom where they'd put her things. Her old phone, the one she'd kept even after getting a new one, sat in her purse. She powered it on with shaking hands and scrolled back through years of messages until she found them. Text messages from Daniel's work. Notifications about schedule changes. And there, 2 weeks before he died, a message from a supervisor named Marcus Flynn. Daniel, need you on the late route tonight. Tommy called in sick. Extra pay, and you said you needed it for Leo's birthday. Daniel had complained about that shift. Said something felt off about it. But they'd needed the money and he'd gone and he'd never come home. Emily's vision blurred as rage and grief collided in her chest. Marcus Flynn had sent Daniel to his death. Marcus Flynn had used her husband's love for his son as the bait. The next morning, Adrian didn't come alone. He brought someone with him, a thin man with nervous eyes and hands bound behind his back. Emily recognized him immediately from the photo in Daniel's old work emails. Marcus Flynn looked smaller in person, more pathetic, his expensive suit rumpled and stained. What is this? Emily asked, though she already knew. Justice. Adrian pushed Marcus into a chair. Or the beginning of it. I thought you deserved to hear it from him. Marcus looked at Emily, and recognition flashed across his face, followed by something that might have been shame. Mrs. Carter. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry. The word felt like acid on her tongue. You sent my husband to die and you're sorry? I didn't know. Marcus's voice cracked. I swear I didn't know they were going to kill him. They just said they needed someone to take the fall for the missing shipment. They said it would look like negligence, that he'd get fired, but that's all. I didn't know they'd... He broke off, tears streaming down his face. I needed the money. They were going to kill my daughter if I didn't cooperate. So you sacrificed mine? Emily moved closer, her whole body shaking. You sent Daniel into a trap because you were scared? Because you needed money? She thought of all the nights she'd cried alone, all the times Leo had asked when Daddy was coming home. He trusted you. He went because you told him to. I know. Marcus sobbed openly now. I know, and I've lived with it every day. But I didn't have a choice. Everyone has a choice. Adrian's voice cut through the room like a blade. You chose yourself. You chose wrong. He looked at Emily. Now she gets to choose. You can walk away and I'll handle this my way, or you can choose what happens to him. Either way, Marcus Flynn won't hurt anyone else. Emily stared at the man who'd destroyed her life. She thought about Daniel, about his laugh and his terrible dad jokes and the way he used to dance with Leo in the kitchen. She thought about the 3 years she'd spent angry at him for being reckless, for leaving them, and how all that time he'd been murdered for being in the wrong place with the wrong supervisor. She thought about Leo in the next room, drawing pictures of superheroes, still innocent enough to believe good people always won. I don't want revenge, she said finally, her voice steady. I want to never hear his name again. I want him gone from my life, from my son's life, like he never existed. She looked at Adrian. Can you do that? Yes. Then do it. And make sure everyone knows my husband wasn't a criminal. Make sure his name is clean. Adrian nodded once, sharp and final. Take him, he told his men, and they dragged Marcus Flynn out, still sobbing. Emily didn't watch them go. She walked to Leo's room and stood in the doorway, watching her son sleep, and tried to remember how to breathe. By morning, Marcus Flynn was gone. Emily didn't ask what happened to him. He didn't want to know. 3 weeks later, the threats stopped. The black sedans disappeared. Emily's phone stopped ringing with unknown numbers. Adrian's visits became less frequent, then stopped altogether, until she hadn't seen him in 5 days. She told herself it was a good thing. They were safe now. They could go home. But the house felt empty without his quiet presence, and Leo kept asking where Mr. A went. On a Tuesday afternoon, there was a knock at the door. Emily opened it to find Adrian standing on the porch, a sealed manila envelope in his hands. He looked tired, she realized. There were shadows under his eyes that hadn't been there before. It's done, he said simply, handing her the envelope. Inside was more money than Emily had ever seen. along with official documents declaring Daniel Carter's death as murder under investigation. Life insurance papers that had been lost suddenly reappeared. Character statements from people Emily had never met. And at the bottom, a letter from the district attorney's office officially clearing Daniel of any suspicion of criminal activity. Now the world will know he died a hero, not a criminal, Adrian said. Emily's eyes filled with tears. Why help me? Really? You could have ignored my text. You could have had me killed for using your number. Why did you do all this? Adrian was quiet for a long moment, looking past her to where Leo was arranging toy cars on the floor. Because you texted the wrong man, he said finally. And somehow it was the right thing to do. Your husband got caught in a war he never signed up for. He didn't deserve that. You didn't deserve that. And Leo deserves to know his father was a good man. He met her eyes. Sometimes we don't get to choose the lives we're born into. But we can choose how we leave them. Emily stepped forward and before she could think better of it, wrapped her arms around him. Adrian stiffened, clearly not used to being touched with affection, but after a moment his arms came up and held her gently. Thank you, she whispered. When she pulled back she saw something in his expression she'd never seen before. Hope maybe. Or the faint possibility of redemption. What happens now? She asked. Now you start over. Clean slate. New apartment already paid for 6 months. Job lined up at a restaurant uptown, better hours, better pay. Leo's enrolled in a good school. He started to turn away then stopped. And maybe I start over too. Maybe I figure out what it means to be someone worth knowing. You already are, Emily said softly. To us you already are. Adrian smiled, small and sad and genuine. Then maybe there's hope for everyone. He walked down the porch steps as the first snow of the season began to fall, coating the world in white like a fresh start. Leo ran to the door, pressing his face against the glass. Bye, Mr. A, he called out, waving frantically. Adrian turned back and waved once, a gesture so human it made Emily's chest ache. Then he got into his car and drove away, leaving behind 2 people whose lives he'd saved and, in the process, maybe saved his own soul just a little bit. Emily stood in the doorway with her son, watching the snow fall, holding the envelope full of second chances against her chest. She'd texted the wrong number in her darkest moment, and somehow, against all odds, it had led her to exactly the right person. Sometimes the worst mistakes became the best gifts. Sometimes monsters turned out to have hearts. And sometimes redemption came from the most unexpected places. The snow kept falling, covering everything in possibility.